Yeah, so welcome back. I've recorded this video as per your inputs so that we can have a discussion on all the doubts which you have after going through this particular video. I'll pass on another video for the Wednesday class. This particular video is for Monday class, and then on Friday we'll meet for your doubts clarification. Just a quick glance through what all we did. We were talking about software quality matrix, where we said that okay, it's initially we have three broader classification, which is your product, process, and project. Then we looked into the details about the product matrix. Afterwards we talked about your process matrix, then the project matrix, and then we saw a couple of definitions, and then we said that okay, the software quality matrix can be further divided into end product quality matrix and the in process quality matrix. I guess I don't need to go into details about that. Then we said that okay, let's talk about product quality matrix. So we said broadly it is classified into four, which is your MTTF. Then we also talked about MTBF as well, which is your mean time to failure and mean time between failure. Another one is your defect density. Then we have the customer problems and the customer satisfaction. We talked about MTTF in details, and there are some issues associated with it, that it's proving to be a very costly affair for various reasons which we elaborated in the last class. Then we have the defect density matrix, where we looked into the defect rate, and then we talked about lines of code, which is LOCs or kilo LOCs, and then there are several variations of it. And we talked about physical LOCs and your logical LOCs as well. Afterwards, we looked into your LOC count and your defect tracking. Then we saw a couple of formulas where we were talking about shipped source instructions and your changed source instructions. And further, we were about to start function points, and I'm going to give you a brief idea about function point, because I assume that this is something which you have already studied, and it's like you have already worked on it. You might have solved several formal calculations. You might have done several calculations on it, where you used to take care of your external input, external output, inquiries. So these were the type of transactional functional type. And then you were talking about internal logical file, which is your ILF, and your external interface file, which is your EIF, which is a kind of data function type. And then we, in case of function point analysis, where we said that okay, this is something which is a unit of measurement in order to express the amount of business functionality a particular system may provide to a particular user. And on top of it, these particular things mean the sense that function points are widely used to compute a functional size measurement of software, and ultimate goal is to find the overall cost of a single unit. And we extract data from the past projects in order to get the details about a to be developed application. And when we talk about function point analysis, so this can be defined as a collection of executable statements that perform a certain task together with declaration of the formal parameters and your local variables manipulated by those statements. So this definition was given by Kant et al. In the year 1986. And your ultimate measure of the software productivity is the number of functions that a development team can produce given a certain amount of resources, regardless of the size of the softwares in lines of code. So here what we do is we ultimately try to find how many person months we need to finish this particular project, and then we get a rough calculation of the average amount of salary which we are going to pay. So if we have the data about function, the person months, and the average amount of salary we are going to pay, so multiply by it, and the time taken to cover this particular project, so that would give me a rough estimate of total cost incurred plus some implied cost or some explicit cost added to it, and then you further add 12, 30, 40 or 50% of your profit to it. That results into your overall budget for a budget which you are going to quote for a particular application. So if this function point is something which is very crucial, and it is widely used as well. In this case, what we do is we go for a weighted total of 5 major components. One is your number of external inputs and your number of external outputs, plus the number of logical internal files, that means files as the user might conceive them, not physical files we are talking about. Then we have the number of external interface files. When we talk about external interface files, that deals with files accessed by the application but not maintained by it. And then we have the number of external inquiries, that means the types of online inquiries supported. And we multiply each of these things by 4, 5, 10, 7 and 4 once again respectively. So that's how we calculate this thing. Then what we have is, then we go for classification of these 5 entities, right? That means the external input, external output, your logical internal files, your external interface files and your external inquiries, right? So what we do is we go ahead with giving the weighing factor, which is your low and high, depending on the complexity assessment of the application in terms of these previously covered 5 components. So this was given by Kemmerer and Potter in 1992 and Sproul in 1990. So you can search these two, three names on Google Scholar, and you can get to know about the details, exact details of it as well. So every time what we do is we tell that, okay, whether it is low complexity or high complexity, and we give some weightages, and or maybe the weighing factors, you can say. For each of these things we go ahead with this, and then we have like 14 general system characteristics based on which we take a call for this particular function point. So what we have is, we have like data communication, we have distributed functions, we have of course performance on one side, then some heavily used configurations, this transaction rate, plus your own online data entry and your end user efficiency, your online updates, some of the complex processing, plus the reusability factor which we consider if we are giving some importance to it. Then we have like installation ease, operational ease, your multiple sites if you have multiple sites for your application, then your facilitation of change. So what we do is we consider these 14 points, and then we give the weightages, we go ahead with multiplications and so on and so forth, which I don't think I need to throw some light. And what we do is we try to calculate one estimate, which further I need to take a call on adjusting that particular figure. So for that sake also we have a very small formula. That means once the number of function point is obtained, what we do is we multiply these function counts and the value of adjustment factor. So your function points will be equal to your function counts into this particular value of adjustment factor. Now this is something which is crucial because this particular thing, what it does is it takes care of the adjustment part. That means based on these factors and all, what we do is we give find a total, we multiply by it, and we try to adjust it. See, the only thing which we need to take care of is, out of these 14, what all are the important things where I need to pay a good amount of focus for my particular project, because based on that only I'll give some weightages to it, I'll form a particular sum, and then we'll go ahead with the kind of adjustment. Now what we do is, this is something which is the last part that gives you an idea. Then there are several benefits of this function point analysis. So in this particular thing, this particular thing determines the size of a purchased application package by counting all the functions included in the package. And on top of it, this particular metric helps us to discover the benefit of an application package to their organization by counting functions that specifically match their requirements. There are some additional benefits of function point analysis, that this particular FPA works as a measure of a unit of a software product to support quality and productivity analysis, because see, if everything matches, our estimate matches, so definitely we need to take a call on how we need to go ahead with development of a particular project. Then it's a vehicle to estimate the cost and resources required for software development plus the maintenance part. That means post deployment, the moment software regresses, we need to go ahead with maintenance. That particular part is also included. So if you recall, you plot a graph and then you give weightages for each and everything, whether how much weightage is to be given to the coding part, then the testing, then the deployment and post maintenance. So recall that particular bar graph chart. So there what we used to do was we used to give weightages. So that particular weightage and the plot gives an idea that okay, for a particular task how many people we need and how much will be the overall cost incurred. And on top of it, there is another major benefit of a function point analysis is that it works as a normalization factor for software comparison as well. That means I get an idea that okay, later on if I have to compare my to be built application, so in that case what I can do is I can take a call on this particular function point for the basis of comparing couple of applications. So right, in that case this also comes very handy. Now let's talk about function point defect rates. So the estimated defect rates per function points are as follows. This is based on SEI CMM level. So for 1 it should be 0.75, for 2 it should be 0.44, and for 3 it should be 0.27. For SEI CMM level 4 it should be 0.14, for 5 it should be 0.05. Now the question arises what basically this CMM is and what basically the CMM level means. Here SEI stands for Software Engineering Institute, which has given us this CMM model, which is your capability maturity model, and it has several levels added to it. So this is basically a development model which was given once again in the year 1986 after a study of data collected from organizations, and then the term maturity was introduced to it, which relates to the degree of formality and optimization of processes. That means how formal I am in coming up with this particular application. So higher the CMM level, higher the degree of formality is. That means what we do is for particular application we'll declare that okay, this particular application relies on CMM level 3, 4 or 5. Based on that budgeting is done. Based on that we go ahead with following certain processes and procedures in order to come up with this particular product. Now what was the purpose? Purpose of the CMM level was to enhance the quality, to improve the quality. Now what these levels mean, so basically in case of level 1 it is your initial level. So it is a characteristic of processes at this level that they are undocumented and in a state of dynamic change. So that means most of the things are not documented and there are frequent changes which are observed in our software development process. So most of the time these things go uncontrolled, and these things lead to a chaotic environment in the development process. So this is something which is a basic level, and afterwards we go ahead with the level 2, which says something which is repeatable. So this maturity level talks about repeatability, where we say that some processes are repeatable. So we go ahead with process discipline, and instead of going ahead with a rigorous approach, we may take a call on the process which we can repeat. In case of level 3, it talks about defined. That means it is the characteristic of processes at this level that there are set of defined and documented standard processes established and subject to some degree of improvement over time. So well defined, established, and there is always a scope of improvement, and these standard processes are in place. In case of level 4, it is your managed or called as capable. So in this, it is a characteristic of processes at this level that using process matrix, effective achievement of the process objectives can be evident across a range of operational conditions. So it is well managed, so it has a potential of managing it. And the last one is something which is called as optimizing or the efficient one. So this talks about continually improving process performance through both the incremental and innovative technologies. So this talks about changes, this talks about improvement, and this is something which is the costliest level. That means any product at a CMM level 5 will be a costliest one, because everything is well documented, everything is well optimized, everything is well efficient. So this was all about your CMM level. You might have studied this particular model as well, but just wanted to give you a rough idea about it since we have introduced the CMM level over here. Now next, the classification of metric is your customer problems matrix. Let's quickly go through it. So the problems metric is usually expressed in the terms of your problems per user month, which is your PUM. Your PUM is the total problems that customers reported, that is the true defects and non-defect oriented problems for a time period, divided by total number of license months of the software during the period. So that's how we go ahead with deploying it. That post a particular project which is deployed, we take a call that okay, for the next 12 months, we take a call on providing full facility of removing all the possible bugs which are identified by the end user post deployment. Here the number of license months is equal to number of install licenses of the software into number of months in the calculation period. So where the calculation starts and where it ends, that is included in it. The customer problem metric can also be regarded as an intermediate measurement between your defect management and your customer satisfaction. See, ultimately, first of all, we should avoid having any particular defect in my application. But if suppose end user comes back to me, reports some defect, I need to work on your defect management process as well. So this particular problem metric is nothing but an intermediary measurement between your defect measurement and customer satisfaction. See, if I am able to take care of all the defects, so ultimately your customer satisfaction will be on the higher side. And in order to reduce the customer problems, one has to reduce the functional defects in the products. And in addition, one needs to improve other factors such as your usability, your documentation process, your problem discovery. And to improve the customer satisfaction, one has to reduce the defects and overall problems at the end. See, ultimately I need to reduce the defects. And if I am able to reduce the defect, the overall problem automatically gets reduced. And this should be on top of managing the factors of broader scope such as timing and availability of the product, This also takes care of your company image, your company services, the total customer solution, and so on and so forth. See, ultimately, whenever we are talking about your customer satisfaction, which can be achieved only by providing a quality application. Now, once again, I would like to recall that when we talk about quality, this is in context with the amount paid for a particular application. Now, software quality is something which is subjective in nature. Just because I cannot compare an apple with a banana, right? There is a totally different scope for all these both these categories, and there is a different pricing for both these categories. So similarly, if I am paying, let's say 1 lakh rupee for an MIS application, and on the other hand someone else is paying 10 lakhs for an MIS application, so definitely the kind of facilities or the functionalities which the second application will be having will be 20 times or 100 times more than what the first one is providing. So in order to measure software quality, what we say is that within the specified budget, if my product is meeting all the requirements which are specified by the clients, I'll be happy with the product provided. That means whatever is written in my software requirement specification, that is provided by this particular product, so I'm good with it and happy with this particular product. Because see, once again, it is something which is a tricky affair, because many times I may come up as a developer or maybe as a software IT company, I may come across a client who is stringent, who is not ready to listen, and every time he may come up with some or the other issues and claim that okay, the software solution which you have provided is not up to the mark. That's why we need to jump to these software quality matrices as well, because in the software quality metric we will be able to claim that okay, this is what you said, this is what we have achieved, this is what the parameters are based on which I am measuring this particular product, and that's why we feel that okay, this is something which is matching your software requirements. Once again, as I said, quality is falling under your non-functional aspect, so it becomes difficult to specify, difficult to measure, and difficult to identify even. For some people, user interface of Amazon.in might be very good. For some people, user interface of Amazon.in might not be good at all. They might be happy with Flipkart's user interface. So these things are subjective. For me, let's say the yellow, white and black combination of Amazon.in looks visually appealing. For someone else, yellow might not be that attractive, and someone might be attracted with the Flipkart's user interface, which comes up with a combination of blue and white plus yellow and so on and so forth. And someone might not be happy at all with both these color combinations. Someone might be looking for a combination of, let's say, orange or maybe a pink or maybe some other random color. So it's something which is subjective. It's something which is subjective. So this was about customer problem matrix. Now there are approaches to achieve a low PUM. Right, when we talk about PUM, it is once again the problem per user month. So what we can do is we can improve the development process and reduce the product defects. That's what our ultimate aim is. See, in any particular application or the application development process, my ultimate aim is to reduce the defects. Recall our discussion on defect management. We used to talk about your defect identification, management and mitigation plans. So all these things I need to take care of. Then also I need to reduce the non-defect oriented problems by improving all aspects of the product, such as your usability, your documentation, your customer education and support. So when we talk about a product, we say a quality product is the one which is always associated with the documentation. Now this documentation is nothing but the installation document. This documentation is nothing but the training document. That means how to install it, how to use it. On top of it, I need to provide the training to my end users, and I also need to provide the support to the end user. And yes, at the end, increase the sale of the product, that ultimately reduces the PUM, because the number of installed license will be on the higher side. And see, considering the basics, if I have increased the sale, that means the number of installed licenses, that means my end users or the customers are happy. That's why they are going ahead with more number of installed licenses or the installed products. Right. So overall, it is like if I am providing a quality application, so the number of users will be, of course, on the higher side. So when we talk about the quality application, so it also deals with the usability, right? It's like if suppose I have come up with a quality application, but no one wants to use it. That means let's say I have used the latest technologies, my usability factor is also very high. It is visually appealing, but at the end, no one wants to use that particular product. So what you'll think is that, okay, the number of installed licenses are on the lower side, but that is something which is dealing with your entrepreneurship. That means the kind of idea you came up with was not that much attractive. These days, if you see a very popular app, which is your CRED, C-R-E-D, CRED, it's very popular. The number of downloads are very high, plus the usability factor of this particular application is also very high. It is considered to be a quality app in the developers domain these days. So when right now I'm talking about Indian context, that means the apps which are available for Indian users. So CRED is considered to be a very popular one these days. If you are continuously following with the updates of what is happening in the country, so there you will come across with the kind of usages which we see is that something which is on a very high. That means number of downloads, the number of installations are very, very high. So this is the scope of 3 quality matrix, which is talking about defects, the customer's problems, and the customer satisfaction. So now I guess I don't need to throw some light, because I've already discussed a lot about these 3 things in the current discussion, right? So it's like defects is resulting into the customer problems. If I'm able to resolve it, I'll be able to achieve the customer satisfaction. That's what the previous 2 slides were talking about. Now the last set of matrix, the customer satisfaction matrix. Now when we talk about customer satisfaction, as I said, so it talks about whether my customer is happy with the product or not. So that can be achieved only when all the requirements specified by the end user are met. This customer satisfaction is often measured by your customer survey data via the 5-point scale. So it's like very satisfied, satisfied, neutral, dissatisfied, and very dissatisfied. So this is the actual documentation, but you can come up with the 7 kind of classification, where it is very, very satisfied, very satisfied, satisfied, then neutral, dissatisfied, very dissatisfied, and very, very dissatisfied. That means highly dissatisfied. So many times you might come across several emails from Amazon or Flipkart or maybe Snapdeal or maybe Swiggy, which talks about a title which says take a survey. So it's like these companies want a feedback from your end. This feedback gives a measure of how satisfied my end customer is. Many times Amazon does it on frequent basis, right? And it's like in some sense many of these apps ask you to go ahead with providing a rating on Play Store, although that has several other benefits, because there it talks about how popular your app is, and then it's like when you see a high rating, so obviously the number of downloads will be on the higher side. It's just like you're buying a product on Amazon, so what you do is you look for the ratings. If it is higher rating, so you feel pretty much more confident on that particular product. So similarly, if more number of people have given higher rating on Play Store or the Apple Store, so obviously the chances of downloading your app will be high. So many times you might observe several pop-ups on your applications which says, are you satisfied? If yes, can you rate this particular app? Right. I guess this is something which is a normal practice which you do on day-to-day basis. Paytm continuously keeps on sending the notification that if you're satisfied, can you rate this app? Many people keep on avoiding it, and they keep on disturbing us with these kind of notifications and all. So it's at the end, just like we people take feedback from you people. I'm talking about a course feedback. So you tell that okay, you are satisfied with the faculty or not. Similarly, it's like taking a feedback for a particular product. So it's a very normal process for every product. It is done. So it's something which is pretty normal. Now, these are some of the parameters. I guess this is something which is the parameter which IBM takes into consideration for measuring how satisfied the customer is based on the following categories. So maybe we will be starting this in my next video. So my next video will start from your customer satisfaction matrix. Okay, see you, bye.